Another option instead of dry scraping would to use the heat gun. This limits the amount of dust and in my opinion works the best. You want to let the heat do the work. You're going to get really tired if you keep trying to scrape this without letting the heat that paint up. And it'll come right off without a lot of effort on your part. It's very important on these old sash that you've taken out to make the repairs to prevent any further damage from happening once you put the sash back in. The real value of the old windows will be lost if you let them further decay. The type of wood that historic sashes are made out of is no longer available today. And with the right proper maintenance, consolidation, and filling, they will last another 100 years. A lot of times you will also have loose mutton, something that may feel loose, but once you consolidate, fill, put the glass back in, this sash is going to last for another 7,500 years. Now that we've repaired our sash and primed it, what's the next step, Mark?
We're going to be laying glass. That's with glazing, glass points, and I guess that's what you lay glass with, eh?
That's what I like to use.
Okay. First of all is what you're going to see. This is the lower sash. At the top, instead of having a glazing rabbet, we actually have a channel that your glass will go into. So you want to get some putty in there. So once the putty hardens up, you're not going to get rattles in there. So the easiest way to do it, grab some glazing from me, Robin. Kind of roll it into a little snake. You're just going to start laying it on right on the seam. Take a putty knife, squeeze a little bit in, working it down. You don't want a lot there because there's not a lot of space, so you want enough space that it'll ooze out once you start embedding the glass into it.
Can we use caulking in here?
You could use caulking in here, but a lot of caulks act as an adhesive, which will make it very hard if the glass breaks to get all the little fragments out of it. Nice thing about glazing is you can heat it up and it'll become moist again. So you can get with a you just had one, Robin. Can you show them that chisel that we were using to clean this rabbit out? Go ahead and describe it for them.
This is an 1/8 inch chisel, which is just the right size for that rabbet. So if you have any old glazing or wood that you need to remove to fit your glass, it fits right inside there and you can take it right out.
We're almost done here. Now, working with glass, you're bound to break some glass. So if we break some glass doing this, I wouldn't be surprised, but both Robin and I have done this many a time, so we have a good chance we'll get a nice, good, clean lay here.
And since the glass is trapped in the rabbet, or dado, you won't need to use glazing points.
But you're going to see as we lay the glass in, this is going to squeeze on each side, which can give us a nice gasket around the edge of the glass. Okay, so we got that done. So what we're going to do next, we're going to do what's called back bedding. So you're going to take glazing. This is best, especially when you're working in cool climates. Working in your hand so it's warm, it'll make it much more pliable. Then you're just going to take your thumb in a twisting motion right in the glazing rabbet. You're going to put it in, you're going to twist it and pull it towards you. Twist it and pull it towards you. You're just going to work on down so you have a little 45-degree amount of glazing right in that rabbet. And again, what we're trying to do is get a gasket around the window to hold it in place, because your window won't be cut exactly to the frame rabbet because of heating and contraction. It'll sometimes get jammed in there very tight and it'll crack, or it'll get in there loose enough that it'll rattle.
And if you do break the glass when you're taking it out, and you need to have a new piece of glass cut and it's something you can't do, call your local hardware store. They should have a glass cutting center. And what you want to do is measure the full length across, but subtract 1/8 of an inch, so that there'll be roughly a 1/16 of an inch on each side, so it's not too tight, so you won't break it when you're trying to put it back in.
And it's common, if you can get the glass at some big box stores will only have single weight. There are two strengths of glass. There's single weight and double weight. Single weight is usually used on the topper sash. Being thinner, it's more of just a weather barrier. But on the bottom, you usually use double strength because bottom sashes are more apt to be broken by moving furniture, pets, children. So you want a little bit thicker glass so it's a little bit more rugged. Okay, now you also do this left-handed, or you can just spin the frame, whichever more comfortable for you. And it should be fairly consistent, because if you have air gaps, the moisture from the inside of the house will work into that gap, and then as it gets towards the outside glazing, it'll freeze up and pop your exterior glazing out. So you want a nice, almost consistent bead all the way around. You want to be able to have it work out from behind the glass. There's also two products you can use. Again, you don't want to really use any caulk that is an adhesive. It'll just make it more difficult for the next person. Okay, see how we have a nice, fairly even spreading of the glazing all the way down, and it's still quite soft, so we can push it past the glass. Okay, time for glass, Robin. Okay, when you pick up glass, always try to pick it up from the top. Therefore, in case it breaks, it's always falling away from you. When you lay glass horizontally, you're going to try to want to grab it in the center so the weight is distributed.
And what we did before we laid our bedding down is we dry fit this to make sure that it would go in.
And we're just going to line it up for that rabbit. You're going to start to see it ooze out. Okay, it might be best, let's try standing this up so the camera can see it. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to just kind of put pressure, wiggle it back and forth. We're close, got a little bit more to go. You probably should be using leather gloves for this. Both Robin and I are comfortable working with glass. Okay,
I'm free on this side.
Are you? So we're going to go a little bit this way. Okay, we're really close. I'll keep working. Work a little bit more towards the center. Because what you can do, you can tap the whole sash. Make sure when you hit the table, you hit it level. And you'll actually use the mass of the glass for the weight to get it in place. Okay, still got a little bit here in the corner. Okay, we're going down. Okay, now that we got it in the rabbit, we can lay it flat again. And you're going to want to seat it, starting where your rabbit is and working towards the end. If you're comfortable, you can do it with your hands. Sometimes I use a board so I can distribute the pressure. And you can do it very slowly, because you want to see that glazing oozing out as the glass goes down. And you're not going to put a lot of pressure in it. That's why you want the soft glazing.
Now we're ready to install the glazing points. Like Mark said, the purpose of the glazing point is to keep the glass tight to the bed glazing as you're doing your glazing on top. And also, if the glazing does fail, it'll keep the glass from falling out. And what you want to do is just use your glazing knife. The way these are constructed, you can put your glazing knife right up against the barbs and you push it in to the side of the frame. And you don't need too many, you just need enough to hold it in. On a large frame like this, the most I would do on one side would be 3.
Okay, now that we have all the points in, our glass is being retained. It's back bedded, so the glass has a gasket on the inside. Now what we're going to do is we're going to run glazing down here so it covers the edge of the wood and a little shallow of the inside trim so we don't see the back side of the glazing from the trim. There are a couple different ways to do it. Many people just keep a glob and they just work it in as they pull it down. And as I'm pulling the glazing with my left hand and I'm actually pushing with the knife. Then you just re-glob it, start over again, pulling the glazing away from the direction you're going, just keep on globbing it in. This way it gets kind of messy, but it does the job.
Does it matter how much you put on?
No, it doesn't, because you're going to actually go at this probably about 3 times to get your bead. And once you get all the way down, make sure you tuck it in that corner well. And as what I'm doing is I'm pushing down against the wood, against the glass, but a lot of times you'll have a little bit of the edge of the glass and you want to be able to drive your glazing into that edge. I'm going to pick about a 45-degree angle, and again, is what I'm doing this for is just to really compress the glazing into any cavities that may exist there.
You want to use a fairly strong touch on this, so you're making sure that the glazing is, you're not having any voids in behind.
You want to keep a fairly consistent pace all the way down. Because what I'm doing, most of my pressure is on the center of the knife against the edge of the wood. I have my knife at an angle so that I'm cutting the glazing at the glass with just the corner of the putty knife, but it's giving enough space for the extra glazing to be released out of the way. If you do it flat, you'll almost set up a bunch of glazing in front of it, which will actually start pulling the glazing behind it out. Okay, that's my first cut. Now my second cut, I'm actually going to be trying to look for the inside trim that I want to cut behind. And again, I'm keeping, so my corner's cutting the glazing away from the glass. And you may get sometimes where you actually feel the edge of the glass. So you're going to want to go back, smush the glazing back into that area, and then recut it.
Now that the window has been fixed, we've primed it, we've bedded the glass, installed the glass with glazing points, gone over with the finished glazing. What's the next step, Mark?
Next step is to install the window. Now that all the work is done, we get to put it back together and make it good as new.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Robin.
Thank you.
We'll be back soon.
The Old House Network teaches people how to care for old houses by hosting workshops and seminars on traditional building and repair techniques.
Okay, now that we've been working with old wood, we've stripped all the paint off it. A good idea is to moisturize it. Standard in the trade is linseed oil with turpentine. It should be 60% linseed oil, 40% turpentine, or you really can't go bad just practicing 50-50. The linseed oil will soak in, the turpentine will make it thinner so it soaks in deeper and also help it dry quicker. You're just going to want to put it on a rag. And you just want to run it up and down the wood, and you're going to see that it soaks in because you want more or less a flat finish. If it's too glossy, it means that no more oil is soaking in. And if it soaks in really good, then just go ahead and throw some more on.